Oh, so welcome everybody to this first episode of recorded conversations about dogs. Um, it's so new, I don't even have a name for this yet. I was thinking maybe Canine conversations, something along those lines. But maybe I'll get some input from you who are watching or listening. And the idea being that this could be just an additional piece of information and or inspiration and just general sense of community for those of us fascinated by dogs and those of us who want to understand more about what they need from us to be happy and healthy and part of our team. So today, as usual, I am joined by my team. They are both down here. There's Ludo's little face down there. He looks like an adorable angel. Actually, he's a cheeky rascal. We all know that. And then we've got Chili just in the bed there that you might be able to spot. But not only do I have my canine team with me today, I also have Rebecca. Rebecca is my friend, colleague, mentor, sounding block. She is a wonderfully experienced dog listener, among other wonderful skills, based in Vermont, which is the northeast of the United States. If you want to follow her, she can be found on Instagram. Her handle is VT Dog Listener. And she shares lots of lovely little snippets of information about her life with her current dogs, Tinker and newer Leonard. So Rebecca, hello, and thank you so much for joining me on this first one. How are you today, and what's the weather like?
Well, we're at the tail end of a blizzard here, and so I'll be shoveling after after our conversation for the umpteenth time.
I
Thank you for
saw
inviting
on
me.
it's a real pleasure. I did see actually on your recent Instagram post that it was about this deep
Yes,
with snow.
we have about 8 inches, and we're expecting another 2 today. So yes,
Oh my
it's a
gosh.
joy.
And you dug a little channel for Leonard,
Yes, we've
or
always
had
done
he
that.
made that himself?
No, we have always constructed little potty stops for our dogs because we generally have small dogs. So he has a racetrack around the outside of the rectangle, and he has little round rooms within that that he can stop in and keep his
Oh,
racetrack
you
clean.
must video that. I have not seen this. That would be really fun to see.
He's so fast, it's very hard to film him.
And he's light in colour as well.
He is hard to spot.
Yeah, he's a little snow dog.
Yes.
So in terms of today's conversation, we were wondering about the topic of bringing a new dog into the home, acclimatizing a new dog into the home, that kind of thing. Something that you've had a lot of experience with and loads of different experiences. I feel like there's like a whole series of conversations that I need to have with you, including Buster and Emmett and Tinker and now Leonard, and then you've got your Dexter. But maybe, yeah.
Pugsley and Tally and Teddy and yes.
There we go. Okay, so how do we narrow it down? Maybe I'll start with a question of, when you're first thinking about bringing in a new dog back, what is it in the home and in the garden in particular that you are particularly concerned about making safe, for example?
Oh gosh, well, we do a whole house sweep to make sure that there's nothing that could be grabbed, because that's one of the favorite attention-seeking devices is grabbing things. So anything, isn't it? Anything you don't want grabbed, you have to put it away. Even if you don't know the dog has a history of doing this, because they're so inventive. They'll come up with just about anything surprisingly, almost every day, new behaviors to ask their questions with. So we do a whole house sweep, make sure the fencing is secured. We have a picket fence, which is probably about 4.5 feet high, but I'm positive Leonard could leap over that.
Yeah, right.
He's
Yeah. And
phenomenal.
Leonard's a terrier size, isn't he?
Well, he's a Yorkie poo. So he's,
Oh, he's a Yorkie.
yes, he's about that tall. Yes, he's probably about that tall.
Yeah.
But he has tremendous leaping ability. So we just keep an eye on where he could possibly escape, if they needed to, because as you know, the first week or the first 2 weeks, it's tremendously traumatic for them to switch homes. That's just not done naturally, unless there's a split and a mature male wants to go off and start his own family. It's not in their instincts to think of leaving their family. So they can be escape artists. So we try to keep, well, especially for Leonard, we keep him on the first floor. And our house is fairly compact, so his space isn't huge in the beginning. That's about it. That's our preparation.
I think that's a lovely point to raise, actually. I quite often talk to people about you don't have to give your dog everywhere to begin with and everything to begin with. And if we move it on the next step and we actually bring them home with us, for me, usually they're on the lead. Obviously, it will depend with the nature of the dog, the experience of the dog. If they're fine on the lead, I will leave them on the lead in one room. And then when they suss that out, we might go into another room.
Yeah.
In the garden, I'm one for taking them out on the lead until I know, like you're saying, until I know they're not trying to find their way out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. In fact, that's the first thing that we do. We don't bring him straight into the house straight away. We bring the dog into the yard so that they can have a good sniff around, relieve themselves. I have found one of the first things they do is to open their bowels. Because they're terrified, they're hoping that their previous family will come and find them. And so they're laying down this humongous scent, hoping that that's going to be picked up. So we get that out of the way, take our time, and then we come into the house, and yes, the lead stays on, definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
How long was it for Leonard that you left the lead on? Was it within 24 hours or was it longer than that for him?
We left it on. We left it on. And there are times when we still have it on him because he's been with us since October. We're still learning about him. He's still showing us new things. We haven't had a lot of practice with visitors. So we do have the lead on. Some days he's a little more on edge than others, probably having something to do more with me than, but we do live in the country. So hard to know if he's just picking up a new scent.
Of course.
Yeah, so those days where he's a little on edge, I just leave the lead on in case he needs to have a little time to himself. Thank, look, and time out. But it's handy. I mean, it's just that measure of calm that the leash gives both myself and actually Leonard, because I'm able to put myself in front of him. So
yeah, and it's interesting actually. So you've had him since October. It's coming up to our Gotcha Day, which will be hang on, it will be his third gotcha day. It'd be 3 years ago that that he came to us. Do you call it that in the States as well, the gotcha day? Probably.
Yeah.
We probably got that from you. I don't know why I'm asking you whether you've heard that or not. And so it's been a while. Yet, last night or the night before, he knew there was a fox outside. He couldn't control himself to relax. So I used the lead to bring him away. And he knows, they both know that when the slip lead comes out, she wants me to go on my bed.
Yes.
So he knows, and it's just a nice little sign now. It sort of just cuts through that spinning record in his brain a little bit about, fella, it's all right. You can leave the fox. She's outside. Yeah. Come on. And it's so I actually tried him away, just calling him, Ludo, come away. Nothing. Ludo, come away. Nothing. And then get the lead, remove him. Okay. And then that was it. He was settled purely because he had the lead on him.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, the lead, isn't it?
It is.
Because I do think people sometimes see it as, something that's either not necessary, or maybe there's a pride in it as well that, I don't need my dog on the lead kind of thing. Or maybe it's a guilt thing about it's a controlling aspect. I just feel like it helps them.
I do too. For them, especially with all of the other practices that we do with the start, change, direction, I think it's a measure of comfort. It's almost as though a little, oh, that's right, I don't have to worry about this. They're going to take
exactly.
care.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's so almost exactly, if he'd had a thought bubble, that's what I would have given him when I brought the lead out, apart from his face kind of looks, oh, really? But he's got a face like that. But I would say as well, he was on edge until the lead drew him away onto his comfy bed. Nothing terrible's happened. And then he slept deeply for hours. So yeah. Oh yeah. And in terms of this brings me, this question actually was asked during our first dog club, and it was about how do you manage if the rest of the family or someone in the family is not quite doing the same as you when it comes to having your new dog in the home? It's a hard one, isn't it?
It's such a great question. It's such a, because as a couple, my husband and I struggled for a very long time. And some days we still do. Some days he's still a little uncertain as to what the answer is. I see that as just an overcomplication on his part. In fact, I was speaking with a client yesterday and said, one of the problems with what we do is that it's simple. And so for some people, that's a real issue. We humans want to complicate things. It's just, so I just go back to, at least they have one person that they can turn to and defer to and ask the question, feel secure with. That's at least one in the household. But it is a little complicated because sometimes my husband is sort of like the fun uncle.
Yes, that's like Aiden. Yeah, interesting.
Going, really? That's just not helpful. But I just ignore as much as I can and just do what I need to do for him. Yeah. Yeah.
Time him out when necessary.
That's right. Just leave the room.
Yeah, I was saying as well, some family members, I think, need to see some results. If they've not been directly involved with the the session, the consultation, or, you know, the reading or the teaching, they will need some level of result to see and witness.
Yeah.
So we can't, the only thing we can do is control ourselves. So perhaps we can just try to be our consistent, calm selves with the teaching and the messages that we pass on to the dogs. And at some point, the rest of the family will see some beautiful interaction and cooperation. And then they'll be interested. And then we can teach them a little bit more.
Yes. And I find, well, it's all about communication, isn't it? So when things happen and people aren't necessarily following what we're doing, and it ends up making it more difficult for the dog, I lean on that a lot and say, oh, look at him struggle. Or, gosh, I see that you made this decision in regards to his behavior. Do you think that helped him? Do you see how he's behaving? What impact do you think it has? And that I think has really helped more than anything else with my husband. It's okay, so cause and effect. This is what you did.
Cause and
This is the
effect.
effect. Yes. Now, the next time, try this if you'd like. I never push. If you'd like, if you're interested, and then see the effect. And he's really come along, but it's taken me so long. I finally, after the 8th dog, something like that, finally come on to just let the dog show them what their decisions, you know, the impact that the decisions have on them. So, yeah.
One thing I've had a little bit more success with is asking for help rather than, like you were saying, you know, you suggest never force it, because that's just going to put up barriers, isn't it?
Yes.
Ask for help.
Yeah.
Nobody can refuse their help being asked for. We all love to help, don't we? We all love to help, you know, somebody else. So that's what I felt has been quite useful.
Yes, absolutely. And the other strategy that I have with John is to catch him doing it right. Because there's so many times when, you know, he's just not sure. And so then I'm Monday morning quarterbacking, saying, well, okay, so here are the 3 steps, and this is what would have answered that for him. So when he does something right, it's like, oh, wow, that was so smooth. You have got that down. Oh my gosh, thanks so much. Look how much he appreciates it. He's now sleeping on the floor and he's content.
Yeah.
So yeah, that kind of catch them doing it right. It's hard. Yeah. It's hard. So yeah, it's been interesting with Leonard. You know, we just unpeel them layer by layer as trust comes, you know, the longer that they're with you. And you just never know. You think, okay, we've reached this nice little rhythm. I think I know you. You seem to know me. And then they do something. You think, wow, where did that come from? So one of Leonard's things, and they all have their idiosyncrasies, don't they? He follows at your heels, and it's like a cartoon. You can't see him behind you. So I'll walk into a room and I'll turn around, and he literally turns with my body. So I don't know he's there. So if you walk into a bathroom or into our walk-in closet and you come back out, he's in there. You don't know it.
And you've closed him in?
Closed him in. So there have been a few times where a few minutes later, I'm hearing this muffled barking. I'm thinking, where's that coming from? And I look down, there's no Leonard. And what? So I had to zero in. Well, the other day, I went into the closet. He came in, and as I was closing the door, I could see in my peripheral vision that he was just sitting in the center of the closet like this, just sitting. So I thought, oh, I see. It's taken me this long to understand. So instead of closing the door tightly, I left it open a crack. And I went and I was doing other things in the bedroom and I heard nothing. So I stood there for a few minutes and everything's quiet. And finally he slinks out and he looks around the corner at me like, well, aren't you going to come find me? Aren't you going to make a big deal?
Wow.
Yes. So I think that is a holdover from his previous home because he is 6. He's had 2 homes before us.
Wow.
And so he would get closed in and bark and people would say, what are you doing in there, you silly boy? And, oh my gosh. So no, and he hasn't done it since then. But
That's
it was
amazing.
I just knew he was just sitting in there wondering, well, when is she going to come find me?
Yeah.
Should I bark? The door's open. I can leave when I want.
Oh,
This is very strange.
yeah.
Yes.
How amazing.
He
So
is,
in his previous lives somewhere, he's used that to gain attention on
yes.
his terms,
Yes.
which hasn't been very healthy for him in the long
Not
run.
at all. And I have to, there's another one, his wonderful. So this is all part of course, getting to know them and settling in. So we gave him a toy.
Oh yeah, we've got one of them.
Yeah, and it's great because he's a real chewer and he loves to throw it around and things. Yes, he's looking at me now. Here, sweetie. He places it in the center of the room. He's very careful to place it in the center of the room. And so, of course, you're walking and you twist your ankle or you trip on it. And like the 3rd time he did this, I said to my husband, this is purposeful. Don't respond. Just make sure that you don't respond. And he's doing it. So now my husband has a game with him where he will hide the thing somewhere in the house. And they're having great fun together with this hide and seek. But he's now leaving it when we push it off to the side. He doesn't pick it up and bring it out in front. He would literally just put it in the middle and stand off and wait and see what would happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's unwinding all of those little behaviors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's like opening a box and you just never know what's going to come out with these.
It's so interesting hearing about Leonard because there are some really funny connections between this guy and Leonard. He's always had a thing about toys and putting them strategically and being he uses it as a status symbol.
Yes.
And or he used to, not so much anymore. Sometimes these days. But he would always pick up something and just trot off like a unicorn with gold in his mouth or something. You know, it was so funny.
It's so cute.
And we've never you know, given him any attention for anything like that. But it took a while for him to leave it. So he must have had that. He must have had that feedback from his past humans that this was fun. Or, I mean, he looks pretty adorable when he does it. So I understand from a human perspective, you know. But it's not healthy for them to be getting this attention on their terms.
Oh, no. He was a nervous wreck when we first got him. He really was. I mean, that's to be expected. Just changing homes is so traumatic. But he really felt responsible for everything all the time.
Right.
And could not settle. So it took a lot of just waiting it out, not feeding into it, not giving him a lot of eye contact. I couldn't even play with him. You know, if I had a thought of, oh, he's been so calm today, let me just throw the ball a couple of times. Even throwing it once, he was leaping up at me and grabbing me with his mouth. And that intensity was just so obvious. So we didn't play for a good 2 months. I just could not risk it.
And did he do the same with John?
Yes.
Or did he treat you differently?
He was a little more glued to me. he'd come out of a household of all women. He was babied a lot. They talked about how, you know, he was constantly by their side, and when they were gone, looking out the window and waiting for them to come back, and very much the parenting behaviors. So with my husband, he was a little unsure, a little standoffish at first, almost almost nervous around him. But my husband, he's such a calm, centered, quiet person. And he just resolved from the beginning that he was just going to completely ignore him. I'm just going to ignore him. I'm not. And
that's perfect for Leonard.
It was absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect. Because before long, of course, you know, if John sat down to grade papers or read or whatever, Leonard was there, just on the floor next to him in that safe space. You could see he felt that level of comfort with him. So it's, he appreciated that. Me, he was still shepherding around. He was still trying to take care of me. So it was interesting, the extremes in his behaviors.
That's so lovely. Gosh, what an amazing example John set just there.
Yeah.
It's, if people haven't come across AB, Amish bonding, or dog listening before, and we're the first people to kind of introduce this concept of disregard, or, you know, lack of eye contact, or actually totally ignore the dog on some occasions. It comes as quite a shock to a nice, loving human being, doesn't it? A kind-hearted human being. It can come as quite a shock.
Yeah.
Yet that example there just shows that dogs are much more about body language when it comes to language and learning. They're watching, and it's about body language, and it's about our energy, our blood pressure, our intention. And John's was so, like you say, grounded, and suddenly the dog feels so unthreatened and so safe. I'm going to be next to him, and chose to be with him. How glorious. I love that.
Well, you know, I with clients, I talk about keeping the pressure off the dog, because they don't communicate in the same way as we do. They don't use eye contact the same way as we do. So, you know, I think that helped John a lot. And we're not here to make instant friends with him. We're here to make a happy home for him for the long term.
For the long term.
Yeah. And what they're looking for is that kindly aloof, I'm on the job, I've got big things to be concerned with, you don't. So when they see us managing the world for them, you know, it's like with children. They know their parents are on the job. They can step back and relax and have fun. So it just goes such a long way to setting that atmosphere of safety.
Yes. Yeah. That's what it does in a nutshell. Safety.
It can come across as being very cold, which is quite tough.
Yes. And if you're not quite used to it and you are a kind-hearted human being, it feels awkward. So I'll just use my mum as an example. The granny of these two, and they love each other. Their relationship is lovely, but I remind her every time she steps out of the car, ignore the dogs. And she is like, oh, yes. And she was actually, going back to how do you coach the rest of your family? Actually, Mum was, because she just loves dogs so much, and particularly boxer dogs, because she grew up with boxers. And it was hard for her to be that. It still is a bit. She kind of does this. I'm ignoring them. I'm ignoring them. So now I'm like, just talk to me. Just relax. Would you like a cup of tea? And so then she laughs and realizes that she's being a little bit kind of uptight about ignoring the dogs. They don't need it like that. It just, it just is practice, isn't it? It just becomes second nature that you can be. I feel totally overjoyed when I come in and having been out without these two. But I'm also totally happy to show them each time that I'm not the puppy in the relationship. I'm not going to get down, oh, I've missed you so much. I have missed them so much and I'm really happy to be back. But I'm just going to sort myself and I'll notice what their energy's like, and I might get a little snuffle in the back of the leg, that kind of thing, and check out the shopping or whatever it is. And maybe it's a bit of practice when it comes to the disregard.
Yeah, that's true. And a lot of times I'll ask my people, what is it like for you? What is your experience of coming into your own home after you've been away, whether at work or from a shopping trip or whatever? And so often I get that, oh my gosh, it's just like having to fight my way through. And so the contrast of, gosh, you get to walk in the house, they come and sniff, you get to put everything down, everyone's calm, you're ready to have that interaction with them. You give them 100% of your attention in that moment. How does that feel to you? You're like, oh, the number of emails I've gotten. Oh, Rebecca, I got home the other day from grocery shopping and the bags were not stripped from my arms. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
I didn't trip over
fabulous.
someone. And yeah, it's such a difference when the dogs are getting what they need versus, them having to guess, is it me? Is it me? Is it me? That anxiety.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at the time. I think we will call it a day just there. Even though we can go on for hours, and we've proven that many times in the past, not recording our conversations, to the point where Zoom or Skype or whatever it was used to just give up on us, after a few hours, didn't it? I think it used to tell us, come on, that's enough. So I'll say thank you so much, Rebecca. It's been lovely to have a proper recorded conversation with you. How lovely. Thank you for starting this off as well. And just to remind everybody, if they want to connect with you, you're on Instagram and it's VT Dog Listener, isn't it?
That's correct, yes.
So VT Vermont Dog Listener. Yeah, VT Dog Listener. Cool. Well, you may well get some new followers from the UK. And yeah, so thank you very much. And I will speak to you very soon.
Thank you, Allie. Bye-bye.
Bye.